Welcome to our webinars. I hope you can hear me. In case you can't, please drop me a message. So we'll get started in about a minute. I'll just make sure everybody's settled in and ready to begin. And again, if you can't hear me clearly or if there's any issues, please message me and let me know. And along the way, if you've got any questions, just wanted to remind you guys that you're welcome to drop us a message, and we'll hope to answer all of your questions efficiently and with the best advice possible. So before we get started, welcome to a webinar series by Live-In Farms, powered by the Hive Explorer. So this is actually a webinar series that's been going on for a while now, and it was previously hosted by my ex-colleague Deidre, who unfortunately isn't with the team anymore. However, not to worry, I'm going to be taking over the next few webinars, and today we're going to be looking at webinar number 10 in our series. So it is called Mealworm Castings for Growing Microgreens Part 1, which is great because that means there's a Part 2 to follow. And just for your info, my name is Sovina Taneja, and I'll be your new webinar instructor. I'm also the marketing associate here at Live-In Farms. I have a Bachelor of Science in Food and Nutrition and a minor in Kinesiology. All right, so I'm going to get started with our lesson. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop us a message. We're happy to help. All right, so lesson 10, like I said, we're going to be looking at mealworm frass for growing microgreens. So our Hive Explorer actually has various inputs and outputs. And one of the inputs that we put into our Hive Explorer is fresh food waste. Now, fresh food waste could be carrots, cucumbers, banana peels. And one of the interesting things that happened to me last week actually was my roommate and I, we were cooking food. And I don't know if you guys know bok choy. It's a pretty common vegetable here in Hong Kong. So we don't like the little butts of the bok choy on the bottom. So we just cut them off. And I was like, wait, we don't have to throw those. I could put them in my Hive Explorer back in the office. So our Hive Explorer takes fresh food waste, and you just got to be careful not to put food with too much moisture. I'll tell you why later. And the other exciting thing within our Hive Explorer is actually our Hive Explorer technology that helps our mealworms grow, which brings me to the output. As you can see on the right-hand side, the output is mealworms. The mealworms grow and stay healthy because of the food that we put in. Moving forward, what is another important output, and the output we're actually going to be looking at more today? It's actually frass. So frass is going to be a word that you're going to keep hearing. So just to let you know, frass in this little ball over here is actually mealworm poop. Yes, poop. So it's actually pretty useful. It's a fertilizer, and that's what you're going to see today. And this is something that comes out of the bottom of our Hive Explorer. Unfortunately, we've got a typhoon signal here in Hong Kong, so I can't show you the Hive Explorer. But if you look at our picture on the white tray on the very bottom of our device, you can actually collect this mealworm poop super easy and efficiently. And that's what we're going to look at today, like I said. So I'm sure a lot of you have been wondering, okay, microgreens, we're going to grow these, we're going to use the poop, but what is a microgreen, and does anyone actually know what they are, and why do we even want to grow them? So if you have any opinions, please feel free to message. Let me know, what is a microgreen? Why should we grow them? If you're not sure, well, if you look at this slide, you'll see that you've got a basic, let's say, stages of a life cycle of a plant. Over here, we're looking at a pea plant. So you begin with your seeds, and they grow into these, they sprout, they grow into these little microgreens, which go on to grow into baby greens. They mature into the vegetable, and you've also got flowers. Now, this stage pretty much applies to almost all vegetable plants. And here you'll realize that microgreens are not a type of plant. So these are not one specific type of plant. They can be applied to any plant species. But what microgreens actually are is that they're a stage. So they're a specific stage in the plant's development. Over here, you'll see it's the second stage following sprouting. Now, the microgreen stage is actually where leaves are most concentrated with nutrients and vitamins. So it's actually estimated that in the microgreen stage, it's almost 40 times more nutritious than the adult plant. And I mean, we're normally the ones eating the adult plant, but microgreens are 40 times more nutritious. Like, I was surprised to hear this fact. And on top of this, microgreens are actually harvested only within 1 to 2 weeks of actually planting or growing the seeds. So it's perfect for you to grow microgreens in the classroom to teach your students. Moving on, these are some common examples of the adult vegetable plants that grow from microgreens. On the left, you've got peas, you've got radish, broccoli on the left, and beets. Now, what are the real benefits of these microgreens? So first, let me ask you, have you actually even tried microgreens? I mean, when I thought about it, I realized that it's not something I would buy in the supermarket, but it's because it's generally fairly expensive. And I've also only ever seen them in expensive restaurants. Honestly, when I heard about microgreens, I thought of MasterChef because when you get to those final stages, the finale level of MasterChef, you've got these chefs with their plating and they take these tiny tweezers and lift these microgreens for decor and decoration on top of the plate. That's all I think of when I think of microgreens. But the real reason they're so expensive, it's because the stage in which they're at, it's very brief. So as soon as they reach 1 to 2 weeks old, this is when you want to harvest them and eat them. Otherwise, they'll continue to mature into the baby greens or the adult greens, and those actually have very different flavor profiles as well as nutritional properties. As it turns out, though, microgreens are fairly easy to grow, which is great news for us and what we're going to be looking at a little later on. Bringing me to a basic summary then of why should we grow these microgreens and what are the reasons. So I'll start with number one, flavor actually. So their flavor is actually stronger than in the adult plant and it's actually a little fresher. So along with that, like I said earlier, more nutritious. They're actually concentrated with vitamins and minerals, which is great if you're looking to get into a healthy diet. Number three, easy to grow. So you don't actually need much space. You'll see later on that we're going to grow them in these little glass bowls. You don't need a garden outside. You don't need a large farm. You can actually grow these in a small space. And lastly, and not the least, will they grow quickly? Like I said, 1 to 2 weeks, depending on the type of plant, of course. So what do microgreens need to grow? Well, like any other plant, you need some basic things. You need the air, the water, sunlight, and nutrients. So I would say light, air, water, fairly easy to come by. But where do we get the right nutrients, for the microgreens? Where do we get these nutrients? This takes me back to our mealworm poop or mealworm frass. I'm going to keep showing you this little bottle because this is all I've got. We don't have our Hive Explorer on us today. Well, we want students to grow microgreens because we want to show them that the output of our Hive Explorer, this poop, is super useful. It's a great natural fertilizer for plants. And why? So if you look here on the slide, you've got the nitrogen, the phosphorus, the potassium content. Now, what does nitrogen do? What does phosphorus do? I know you're all wondering this. So just for your info, nitrogen is actually good to help the plant grow upwards. With phosphorus, it helps the roots grow. So it helps them really dig in and reach into the earth. And potassium, it actually promotes all around good health for the plant. So basically, this poop is perfect to grow these microgreens. Now, let's remember this is all theory, of course. We've established scientifically through this theory that this should be good for the plants, but is this always the case? So that kind of brings us back to today's activity and sort of, I guess, the main reason why all of you are here today to learn how to grow these microgreens. So in a classroom setting, just for your knowledge, what we'd normally do is in week one, we'd actually construct these microgreen trays and a light chamber, which is what we're going to be doing today. In week two, you'll generally allow these microgreens to grow. And in week three, we'll actually be enjoying microgreen smoothies and salads which is actually our last webinar in this series, webinar 12. So I do hope to see you for that webinar because we'll be using the microgreens that we grow today for that session. And again, just for your info, these are the things that you'll generally need for this experiment. You're welcome to screenshot this, but of course, we're happy to share this information with you later on if you'd like. Please feel free to email us with any questions. And now what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to set up and start with our experiment. All right, so I'm just going to change the camera angle here for a second. All right. So the first thing that you're going to need are some glass bowls. If you can see one over here, I've put some hydroponic sponges in here, and well, the other one's empty. But we're going to do two tests. Basically, we're going to do one without the mealworm poop tea, which is what we call it, the poop tea. And we're going to do one without, with just water, because, well, fair testing, we're going to see what difference it makes in 2 weeks when we come back for the next webinar. All right, so go ahead and get yourselves these bowls, and you could just stuff these hydroponic sponges in. I've done about 5 sponges, and they're fairly easy to find. I do want you to remember this is a very hands-on experiment, so you could set your students up into groups of 3 or 4 working on this together. Another thing I suggest that you do if you're a teacher is that you want to make sure you have your students read up on the instructions before they actually do the experiment. And another thing is this mealworm poop that I keep showing you, it's very fine. It's a fine, dry powder. And this can be easily inhaled because it's similar to dust. So if you have dust allergies, do be careful. I am particularly allergic as well, so I'm trying to be careful. Okay. Now, so we're going to set up the control, which is without the mealworm poop first. So I'm just going to go ahead and take this bowl and, oops, sorry. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I have 300 milliliters of just tap water. And, ooh, a fun question I was asked earlier was, what type of seeds are you growing for this experiment today? We've got various types in the office. We've got your pea seeds, beetroot seeds, we've got araminta, radish, daikon, broccoli seeds, a lot of fun stuff. But what we're going to be using today is mustard seeds, which are white mustard seeds. Prepared a little note to let you know the nutritional benefits of these. So mustard seeds have protein, fiber, folate, calcium, iron. A lot of scary words, don't know what they mean. Well, they're good for diabetes, hair growth, sinuses, congestion, environmental stress with phytonutrients. And what I found crazy was that they're actually second to kale in their antioxidant properties. Wow. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take my little balance to measure our seeds. Prepared a little paper so we can measure them on here. Okay. So we're going to be measuring 1.5 grams. Not a big amount. They might fly around. Hoping I can, oh, this wasn't the best idea. Having to make shift a little bit because we're out of the office because of the typhoon today. But just bear with me, guys. Okay, perfect. So we've roughly got about 2 grams here. So what we're going to do is, normally on top of the hydroponic sponges, you want to put a mesh, but from our experience, you could just take a little bit of tissue, place it down, tuck it in around the sponges, okay? And literally just want to take these and scatter them across. You'll notice they may fly around a little bit, so you could just pour a little bit of water to dampen it. Yeah. And you just want to keep the seeds on top and just spread it out. So because I have a little more than 1.5, I'm just going to put these back in. But just to remind you, that's 1.5 grams of seeds and 300 ml of water. So now that the seeds are on here, you can take a look on the tissue paper. we're just gonna wet the seeds a little bit and then pour the rest of the water down the side. Okay, be careful because they may fly around a little bit naturally. So just try to pour off the side after that. Alright, so I'm just gonna go with half the amount of water actually because it seems to have filled up. So that was about 100 ml of water. Okay, so that's number one, our control ready. Of course, again, in a school setting, you want to have your students label this, have them put their name, their group, what type of seed they're growing, and that's the fact that this is a controlled test. Moving on to number two, the exciting one, the poop experiment. So what we're going to do first is we're going to actually make our poop solution. Oh, I've lost the poop. Found it. Okay, so again, we've got to do a little bit of measurement. We need about 3 grams of poop with 300 ml of water. Since I've used 100 ml, we're going to do 2 grams with 200 ml. Okay, just going to restart my balance here. All right, so again, 2 grams and 200 ml in this case. Now it's very fine, so you're going to feel like you have to keep going. This is only 0.7, so it's very fine powder. Still going. Want to get to 2 grams. A little more. Okay, great, perfect. Exactly 2 grams with our 200 ml of water, and we're going to be making poop tea. Not something you hear very often. I personally prefer jasmine tea, but at Living Farms, we make poop tea. Right, so we just go ahead and mix this up. It does not smell bad, by the way, so don't worry about the odor and don't worry about it being too messy. It literally smells like nothing. Super fine, super easy. Just gonna keep mixing this up, and I'm gonna have my friend on the side continuing to mix this as I prepare the next one. So we'll take our glass bowl again, put our hydroponic sponges in, about 5 of them, sometimes 4 should be good. Squeeze them in. And you want to make sure they're flat so that the seeds can actually sit on top. So just like that, they're just squished in. And again, we want to just take our little tissue. Of course, if you have a fine mesh of a few millimeter thickness, that's always better and great, but these still grow. We've tested it out. It's just, yep, just like that. And then again, similar practice. The only thing you have to take a note with the poop version is that you don't want to pour the poop on top of the seeds because it is a little strong, and it's sometimes too strong for the seeds. So you go in with a little bit of water first just to dampen this, and then take your seeds again. So I'm not going to measure it this time because I think you guys have an idea of how much now. I'm just going to eyeball it. So just spreading it out. And of course, this also can be replicated in a slightly larger or even smaller container. It's up to you. You could do testing and see what works best in your space. And now that this is ready and it's damp and you've got your seeds sticking, we're going to pour in our mealworm tea. Nope, not our mealworm tea, our frass tea, our poop tea. Forgot. Okay, so normally it would be great if you strain this before you go ahead and pour it in. But like I said, I am at home, so I'm unable to do some of these things. So should be okay. I'm going to try not to get them directly on the seeds. I'm just going to pour down the side. But yes, ideally, you do want to strain the tea. All right, so I've gone in with another roughly 100 ml. You've got some poop tea remaining for your other tests. And now you've got your control and your test, the mealworm poop, and some basic water with mustard seeds. And okay, what are we doing next? We're actually meant to build a light chamber. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a cardboard box on me, but I'm still going to quickly walk you through how this is done. And I'll show you some pictures of our tests at the office so that you have an idea of what this looks like. So I'm just going to set this aside for you to see. So the idea is that you want to put these under what is called like a light box, and you want to grow these under this cardboard box. What you do is you take your cardboard box and you basically, they usually come flattened out and not set up. So you basically tape one side down. So you've got one side open and one side taped down as if you're going to put something in it. And what you do is you flip that over. So you've got a covering over these bowls. On the top of the box, we want to attach some lights. So normally in a classroom, what we do is we attach these lights with what you call a daisy chain. Also fairly easy to get, a daisy chain. So what that'll look like is basically number one can connect to number two. Oops, I lost number two. So to number two over here. And what you can do is you can have multiple of these light boxes strung along at the back of the classroom or your science room, depending on your setup. Or I mean, of course, even at home, that's what I'm going to be doing. So what you do is you make some holes on your cardboard box and you connect these lights on top of the box, inside the box, and you can put this through and connect this to the next box. So I think you've got a fair idea of what I mean, but I will be showing you a couple pictures after this, just so you're sure. Along with this, what you'll need is some tape. So you could either use some string to string up the lights to the top of the box, or what we did was just use some basic clear tape. And one more very interesting thing is this timer, actually. So this is just a plug, and it comes with this timer, which actually turns on and off based on the time of day or the number of hours of light and dark outside. So it's actually like a 24-hour clock, and you can set it in the classroom to basically mimic daylight and nighttime, which I've never seen before, and I found this pretty cool. So this is also something that you can connect your lights to, basically. And we've got our plug over here. I'm not going to connect these because I'm sure everybody knows what lights look like, but that's basically it for the experiment. I'm now going to share my screen again for you to take a look at what I was talking about earlier, the setup. So that's here. On the left, you'll see the light box. So you basically cut your cardboard box and you make a little slit out front so that you can actually see your bowls so that you can open it up and check them out. And if you'll notice on the bottommost picture over there, you'll see our bowls inside and the setup. And on the right, you'll see how we've taped the lights to the top of the box. So it's fairly simple. And what you do is you literally don't have to check up on these for 2 weeks because that's what you've got your little light timer for. So it'll help automatically turn the lights on and off for you. And yeah, if there's anything anybody wants to ask, please go ahead and do that. And if you do have questions that you want to ask us later on, feel free to email us. So if you're interested in joining us actually in 2 weeks for the next webinar, we're going to be looking at sustainable designs and future food restaurants part 2. Here we're going to look at successful waste reduction. We're actually looking at a case study of a city called Surabaya in Indonesia, which happens to be where I'm from. We're also understanding how local communities can actually contribute towards building sustainable solutions. And we'll also be looking at how to develop a project pitch within a classroom. So this is actually going to look at sustainable restaurants, which I find to be very interesting. So how could you actually build a sustainable restaurant with sustainable food and sort of get your young minds thinking and engaged about this future foods topic. Now, before you go, if you do want to learn a little more about our curriculum, do check our website out. We're also going to be sharing a 20% discount code for all of you that have attended the webinar today. Do click on that discount code and get yourself a Hive Explorer so that you can also get some mealworm poop and make some, I keep saying mealworm poop. It's poop tea, poop tea. So you can have this little bottle of poop tea on hand. You can make some poop tea and you can grow some microgreens, which are good for diabetes and environmental stress. So yeah, thank you for joining in on our webinar. I hope to see you again in 2 weeks. And we've also got another webinar that will follow up on how these guys grow. Do check us out on social media as well. We'll hope to show you the progress on how these grow. Hopefully they don't die. I think I've done it right. So thank you again and hope everybody has a good day, morning, or night, and see you next time.